Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 Sanderson Farms Data Dive Show. We have a lot to cover for you this evening. We are going to look at the GCSA Tournament Fact Sheet, which came out earlier today. We didn't get a chance to do that last night since it wasn't out. We're going to look at the forecast, or at least our first look at the forecast for the Country Club of Jackson. And, of course, we're going to take a deep data dive look into the historical performances at the Sanderson Farms and the Country Club of Jackson, see which skills that players need to succeed around here, the players who best fit those skills, and all of that. So it's going to be a fun show. Hope to hear from you all in chat or in the comments. So let's get right into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler and a much better golf DFS player. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where earlier today I posted some research around the previous winners of the Sanderson Farms, I believe going back to 2016. The pattern or patterns that they all share, and the players in the field this week who fit that criteria. There were, I believe, 19 of them. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contest to play. That comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show at Calls. So be on the lookout for that. If you want to see those pieces of information, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. Really is a great way to start your week of preparation. And he has let me know that he is working on adding to The Fringe, and him and I are going to be working together on producing some content together, if you will. So be on the lookout for that. So you are really missing out if you are not subscribed to his article. It is free to do that. So make sure you are doing that, and go follow him over on social media. His X handle is in the description. Go show him some support. Lastly, we're live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all. In addition to any wagers that you have made so far for the Sanderson Farms, how do you think it's going to play this week? Do you think it's going to continue the trend that it has grown ever more easy the past couple of years? Who is your favorite early on in the week? What kind of lineups and pricing are you focused on? So would love to hear from you all. Jump in chat. And of course, if you aren't able to watch the show live, put it in the comments. But let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2024 Sanderson Farms. And we are going to start normally with what we would on a Sunday evening, but since the GCSA Tournament Fact Sheet was not out last night, we're going to do a very, very quick view of this year's Tournament Fact Sheet. And I say quick because not a lot has changed. They did update that the architect was John Fott with Mike Gogol, but the listed yardage is exactly the same, 7,461 yards. The average green size is still the same at 6,200 square feet. Still only 5 holes with water in play. We are still on very fast or even lightning champion Bermuda. Just a couple of notes here. Country Club of Jackson is actually 3 sets of 9-hole courses. It's the Dogwood and the Azalea 9 comprising the championship. That's been really dry in Mississippi. So the course should be very firm, very fast, which generally it is. So there's a look at the GCSA Tournament Fact Sheet. Again, we covered most of this last night. As promised, if this year's Tournament Fact Sheet came out today, I would start the show with it. But nothing new here from what we talked about last night from last year's GCSA Tournament Fact Sheet. So with that, now we're going to go to what we normally start with on a Monday evening, and that is our first look at the weather. Again, they said it has been very, very dry and it looks like it's going to be that way leading up to the tournament. Thursday, very little wind. Might pick up a little bit in the afternoon and evening. Maybe a little bit of wind picks up Friday and Saturday, but not a whole lot here. Still no rain in the forecast, so this should be as firm and play as fast as they want it to at the Country Club at Jackson. And then on Sunday, very little wind. And looks like very pleasant. Highs in the upper 80s. Looks like Friday might not even, or at least forecast right now, might not get to 80. So it looks just like a pleasant week of golf down in Jackson, Mississippi. And I would imagine that the scoring conditions will be pristine. So there's our first look at the forecast, and of course we'll update this first thing Wednesday night in case something changes. But now we're going to move to Fantasy National and do a couple of quick reviews here from last night, and then we'll start really digging into Sanderson Farms and the Country Club at Jackson. As I have, as far as I have been able to see, there have been no field changes. So if you see a player with a star, that just indicates that they are an alternate at the moment. But the first thing that we're going to do, let's take a look at easy rounds relative to par. Why are we going to do that? Well, when Mackenzie Hughes won a couple of years ago, 2 rounds of average and then easy. All of 2022 was easy. The first 2 rounds last year when Luke List won were easy. This is generally on the easier side of average, and it's gotten easier in recent years. We covered this a little bit last night, but I just want to highlight the historic cut line. The past 2 years have been the lowest it's been since it's been at the Country Club at Jackson. -5 last year, -4 2 years ago. Was in the -1 to -2 range most of the time, but it's really gotten easy the past couple of years. So when rounds have been easy relative to par in the past 2 years, our top performers, in fact, let me get this to the last probably 36 would probably be better. Our top performers when rounds have been easy relative to par: Chan Kim, Ryo Hitsatsune, Hayden Springer, Chesson Hadley, Patrick Rogers, Ben Griffin, one of those that was runner-up last year to Luke List, Bo Hostler, Michael Kim, Rico Hoey, and Keith Mitchell. I did spend a little bit of time talking about long courses, and as I did more research today, the long course being labeled as over 7,400. But as I did more research, I want to direct your attention here to the course length. Now, the official scorecard has it listed at 7,461 yards. But look at Fantasy National. Fantasy National has given this a designation of 72 to 7,400, and has even played less than 7,200 before it was 7,400. So it appears that the tournament organizers have not stretched the Country Club at Jackson to its maximum length or its scorecard length in quite a few years. Because of that, probably won't do a whole lot with that long course filter. Having said that, I will check at least total performance on long courses just to give you an idea as to who plays longer courses well. So those players that have performed best in the past couple of years on long courses: Sam Stevens, Michael Kim, Eric Barnes, Wesley Bryan, Mark Hubbard, Hayden Springer, Nico Echeverria, Matt Kuchar, Harris English, Bryce Garnett, and Henrik Norlander. So with that, that's really about the basis of the research from last night, or overview or review, if you will, because nothing to do with Architect being a John Foughton, Mike Gogol design. This is the only tournament in Mississippi, so this is really all that we can look at there. Let's let's see, 8 rounds. I imagine all these are the Sanderson Farms. Yeah. So nothing there. And looking at the wind, maybe you could look at calm winds, but I think that's just going to contribute to the ease. And that's why we focused and started the show off with easy. So I'm going to clear those filters, and we're going to start getting into some of the deeper detail around the Country Club of Jackson. So we're going to go to Microsoft Excel. I did this for the Pro Core, and please let me know in chat or in the comments if you like this kind of new format to the show where I go to Excel first and then go to Fantasy National to cover the players. But here at the Country Club of Jackson, this is the raw data in terms of the players who have finished top 30 in each of these years. And you can see the heavy emphasis in putting. But there have been 2, I would say, spike performances in putting for the players that finished in the top 30. No doubt that winners have really spiked in performance, but I want you to pay attention to the winners, previous winners of the Sanderson Farms here at Country Club of Jackson. You got players like Cameron Champ, Luke List, our defending champion. These guys are not good putters in general. So either they really like Bermuda, spoiler, Luke List is just not a good putter on any surface, or these greens are not complicated, and it's definitely the latter for the Country Club of Jackson. So while we definitely want to take a look at perhaps some Bermuda specialists, there is something in Fantasy National that we're going to take a look at this evening in terms of spike performance. And we're going to see who some of the spike performers in putting are. But in terms of a strokes gained for the Country Club of Jackson, you see that off the tee has been pretty darn consistent. It has risen gradually year over year, with the exception of 2022 when Sam Burns won. It was a little bit of a lower outlier here. The approach actually has decreased in significance a little bit. I guess I shouldn't say that. I saw the 2.5s and then these, but 3 years where it's been very, very consistent, and 2 years where it was down. What is clear is the around the green doesn't contribute much. Doesn't contribute much to success at the Country Club of Jackson. And in fact, this is a very, very high outlier. You can see it drops a full 1/10 of a point or 1/10 of a stroke if you take out that high outlier. So we are looking at putting mostly. Definitely not going to ignore the approach. But I was pretty shocked seeing how consistent the off the tee has been minus this low outlier. And if we take a look at the Country Club of Jackson compared to other courses, other full field courses on the PGA Tour, that's why you'll see some place like the Tournament Champions, not a full field. Puerto Rico, we don't get those stats. The BMW, the St. Jude down here, not full fields. So let me zoom in here for you and go to the Country Club of Jackson. You see really pretty standard for the PGA, except for putting. Lots and lots and lots of emphasis on putting. If we go across, as I was mentioning last night, we didn't do anything specific around driving distance last night, but we definitely will tonight. Driving distance is 50% more important than the average full field course on the PGA Tour. These fairways are easy, and the rough is not terribly difficult to play out of, other than the fact that it's Bermuda, and if players aren't comfortable or used to playing out of Bermuda rough, it can promote flyer lies and be a challenge in of itself in that regard. But really, the fairways really aren't all that much important to hit. I know it says 11% more important here. If we actually go to the detail, you have 1 year that's pretty far and away higher than the others. If you remove that, it comes down to much more akin to course average or event average on the PGA Tour. So with all of the emphasis in distance, we are going to be focusing on the bombers this week for the Sanderson Farms. You see the greens, they aren't all that important. You would see, except it's right off your screen. 1% less important, right at full field course average. Not a lot with good drives gained. We're going to be looking at players who hit it far and when they give themselves a lot of opportunities, lots of birdies, because 20% more important than the other or the average full field course. 20%. This is one of the higher numbers here. Not a whole lot of eagles, so we're definitely going to be looking at birdies or better, but 20% birdies. It's more than the RSM, which is typically easy. Byron Nelson, TBC Craig Ranch, one of the easiest courses, 27. John Deere, very easy, it's 30%. Detroit's very easy. So, this is top 5 in terms of birdies gained across the PGA Tour. Very, very easy. At least it has been the past couple of years. So we're definitely going to be focusing on who can go low, who gives themselves the most opportunities, things of that nature. Moving into the par 3s, 4s and 5s. Now the par 3s, the winners have been playing these par 3s well. But really, and as we go into the raw detail, almost a full shot in the birdies gained. Really, there isn't a whole lot here with these par 3s. And you see that they kind of play pretty evenly in terms of importance between 150 to 175 all the way to 200 to 225. Play fairly evenly. Yeah, you can make the argument that 200 to 225 is the most important, but it's still about a third of the strokes gained. Maybe more in the 37 to 38% if you want to be exact, but not enough here in terms of the Sanderson Farms to focus on a range of par 3s. So instead, we're just going to take a kind of big picture view of par 3s. Yes, we'll focus on these 3, but you see they shorten the 168. They lengthen the two that measure above 200 to play over 225 throughout the week. So we're just going to take a casual look at par 3s because they don't actually provide a whole lot. 1.4, whereas we'll come back to the par 4s. The par 5s are almost a 2. So more than a half a shot more important to play these par 5s. And look there, 1.4 out of 2. 70% of your strokes gained in the par 5s come from 550 to 600. So we're definitely just going to focus this range. And you see, we even have a low outlier here. So that could be even more than what is showing on those par 5s. And then for the par 4s, pretty even. Now, I will say this is a pretty low number in terms of total par 4s. Pretty low number. You see, the par 4s, 13% less important than the average full field course. It's not that we want to ignore them, but the par 5s are really where it's at. 26.5% more important. So we're really wanting to focus on those par 5s. Oh, sorry, I wanted to go the other way really quickly. We're really going to focus on the par 5s. Par 4s, again, the majority fall 400, 450. 6 of the 10 on the scorecard fall to this range. You have 2 from 450 to 500. On the scorecard, you have 1 that's 505. That's the par 4 18th. But notice they have not played that hole longer than 500 yards any time in the past 5 years. So instead, we'll probably take a casual look at 400 to 450 and then just par 4s in general. Like I said, the main focus will be on these par 5s, 550 to 600. If we want to take a very quick look at proximity, the majority of approach shots here at Country Club at Jackson fall between these two ranges, at least in relation to the average PGA Tour course. I know the raw numbers don't give you a whole lot there. So if we take a look at the evaluation, 100 to 125 actually is a pretty big deal. Fairly big deal there. But Prox total not. And we saw this a little bit last night in the early look file from the players who have played the Country Club at Jackson well the past 5 years. Brock's total is not really that big of a deal. It really isn't. It's kind of in this 100 to 125 range. We're going to see who gives themselves the most opportunities as well. So try to keep these numbers in mind as we're moving forward this week, or this evening, excuse me, as we now move to Fantasy National. And we're going to go through each of these page views here. We're going to first take a look at off the tee and approach, some ball striking here. Let's go with the time frame of 2024 season, last 36 rounds. But we'll go all the way back to the century for some players like Wesley Bryan, who doesn't have the full 36 rounds. He'll have some from Puerto Rico all the way back to the Corrales. I think it is correct to do that because the only other constraint that we could put on this is maybe the 3-month time frame. But it's really hard because there hasn't been a lot of golf played for about a month. So really we'd be looking at 2 months of data, and it would be 3 and 2 months ago as opposed to 2 and 1 month ago. So that's why I'm just going to take a look at all of 2024, but limit the sample size to the past 36 rounds. So in the last 36 rounds of 2024, your top off the tee players have been Cameron Champ, Kevin Doherty, Keith Mitchell, Patrick Fishburne, Johnny Vegas, Rico Hoey, Carson Young, Kevin Yu, Chan Kim, and Alejandro Tosti. Now, I do think I'm going to want to put a filter on the off the tee, especially when we roll around Wednesday night to the mixed condition model. Let's first take a look at off the tee when it's easy. When scoring is easy relative to par, your top off the tee players, this list is going to be very similar, but you do get a couple of new names here to maybe think about. Cameron Champ still the same, Doherty, Mitchell. Adam Schenk actually rises to 4th off the tee when rounds are easy. Patrick Fishburne, Carl Yuan, Mav McNeely, Alejandro Tosti, Nick Hardy, and Rico Hoey. Schenk, McNeely, Carl Yuan, new names in this top 10 for off the tee when you factor in easy relative to par. Definitely didn't help McNeely at the Pro Core. I was very, very high on McNeely, and he clearly just did not play well at all. But he had been doing pretty well off the tee before that. So interesting to note that. Nick Hardy, Sam Stevens lurking just outside the top 10 there. So there's your top 10 off the tee when rounds are easy, and that's probably the metric or filter, that I would use. You could also take a look at fairways when they're difficult to hit, but I think that is quite a bit misleading considering players are just hitting driver because they're not afraid to be in the rough, as opposed to the course itself being difficult to hit. But there's the top 10 in terms of off the tee when fairways are difficult to hit. Again, Doherty, Mitchell, Champ, Hoey, Damon, Kevin Yu, Carson Young, Fishburne, and Johnny Vegas. But again, I'm really, really more so interested in that easy relative to par. Normally, I would have looked at long course as well, but like I mentioned, Fantasy National has listed this as 72 to 7,400 the past few years. So it appears that the tournament organizers have not lengthened the Country Club at Jackson to its maximum extent in a while. So there's your off the tee look. Definitely going to look at approach. It's, to me, the most important shot in golf. Players are going to have to be still very good with their irons. So your top iron players or approach players in the field this week in 2024 in the last 36 rounds: JJ Spawn, Doug Gim, Chan Kim, Keith Mitchell, Ben Griffin, Nick Hardy, Troy Merritt, David Lipsky, Ches Reavie, and Johnny Vegas. One of the benefits, or one of the ways that Gabe looks at data a little bit differently than I do, he actually will use the course filter with his strokes gained approach. I personally don't like it. It's just a different way to look at the data. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at putting in a couple of different ways. We're going to start with how we did last night, looking at fast and lightning Bermuda greens. There is an argument to be made that you just look at lightning, considering they've been lightning the past 4 years. But we're going to include fast just in case they get some unexpected rain or they have to water the course extensively to keep it from really banking out. So your top putters on fast and lightning Bermuda greens in the past 2 years in the field this week: Taylor Montgomery, Chad Ramey, Ben Griffin, Mav McNeely, Sam Ryder, Chesson Hadley, Justin Suh, Anders Albertson, Patrick Rogers, and David Skins. The issue here is that, again, players like Cameron Champ, Luke List, these players aren't traditionally good putters, so they're going to get penalized in the mixed condition model if we were just to look at total putting. I'll check Luke List and his win last year. Yes, traditionally not a very, very good putter, but you take a look at his performance at the Sanderson Farms last year, he gained 6. Now, spike weeks happen, sure, but traditionally just not a very good putter. So I don't want to overweight just total putting, because that's going to be really down on players like Luke List and Cameron Champ who have won before. One way we can absolutely look at this is to take a look at Champion Bermuda specifically. Champion Bermuda is listed as the green surface for 3 different courses that are consistent on the PGA Tour. The first being the Country Club at Jackson, where we are this week. We also have Sedgefield, which is the host of the Wyndham Championship, the final regular season event on the PGA Tour. And then putting at TPC Southwind, which is the host of the St. Jude TPC Southwind. These 3 courses, according to the GCSA tournament fact sheet, have Champion Bermuda. So this is going to be quite a bit of a smaller sample size, but on specifically Champion Bermuda, your top performers have been S.H. Kim, Taylor Montgomery, Garrick Higo, Chris Goddard, Mackenzie Hughes, Mac Meisner, Matt Kuchar, Ryo Hitsatsune, Ryan Brim, Ben Griffin, and Zach Johnson. I believe Higo has won this before as well. Sanderson, nope, finished 3rd. My apologies. He won the Palmetto, which was Lightning Bermuda that week. So if you wanted to get really, deep into the details and look at specifically Champion Bermuda, there's your top 10. But what I'm going to show this evening is this metric here, spike percentage. And it's spike performance. And I'm just going to look at Bermuda Fast and Lightning. And what the great thing about this metric is, as I reapply the filters to the last 2 years, etc., when you click on this spike percentage, you can set what your goal is per se. So you can set it at 0, meaning did they actually gain on or in that round? Did they gain a half? Did they gain 1? So for example, let's just set it at 0. Did they just flat out gain in that round? You see Anders Albertson, for example, has 10 rounds. He has a spike of 70%. That means if we click here, should have 7 of his 10 rounds be positive in terms of putting on Fast and Lightning Bermuda. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And before that, it goes all the way back to 2019, which is before our time frame. So indeed, he has 7 rounds that were above 0, 3 that were below it. Now, 0 isn't a whole lot. And if we go and check Luke List, let's see what he did last year. And I don't want to focus on Luke List, but I'm just giving this or showing this as an example. When Luke List that's the wrong thing that I wanted. When Luke List won last year, you'd be surprised that when he won, he really only had one huge spike performance. He gained 5 in round 2. He gained 1 on Thursday. He gained a half or close to it on Sunday. But really he had one huge spike performance. Let's see. When Cameron Champ won, gained 4, gained 3. I'll swivel out of the way. Gained 4, gained 3, gained 1.5, and then a half. So it's not like they went ballistic every single round. They just had 1 or 2 exceptional rounds of putting. So with that, we're going to narrow this in again. Let's go last 50 rounds. We will cut this into the last 2 years. But on Fast and Lightning Bermuda greens, let's take a look at our top spike performers. We're going to start with, we'll go with 1 for now. See how many times players gained more than 1 stroke on Fast and Lightning Bermuda greens. This is in the last 2 years. We have Roger Sloan just won 1 round, so I wouldn't get too carried away with it. Taylor Montgomery leading the way there. Nick Dunlap, only 12 rounds, but gained more than 1 stroke 5 of those 12 rounds. Houston, the Players, the API, the Cognizant. So he's been very spike performer on Fast and Lightning Bermuda. Taylor Montgomery, who was number 1 overall on Fast and Lightning Bermuda greens. Ben Griffin, one of the players in the playoff last year, arguably should have won it. I had 2 bogeys late. He's been very good and very spiky on Bermuda greens. McNeely, Fox, Taylor Moore, somebody to maybe think about, especially with putting. Ramey, Rogers, there's Higo, who won similar style greens at Congaree. Adam Schenk, 38%. Hadley, Sam Ryder, S.H. Kim, K.H. Lee, Carson Young. Let's up this a little bit. We saw that Luke List gained 5 in 1 round. Cameron Champ gained 4 and gained 3. Let's up this to maybe 2. Players that have gained at least 2 strokes in a round and their spike ability. Let's see. Very few rounds up here. Again, there's Taylor Montgomery. 31% doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're gaining 2 strokes per round or 2 strokes a round 31% of the time, that's a lot. Yeah, you're gaining a lot there. There's Dunlap again, Chad Ramey, Ben Griffin, Trey Mullinax, 26% of the time. Look at this. So that's very interesting. His total is bad, but when it's good, it's really good. See, last year he lost 4.5 in a round. He gained 2.5 in a round. So Trey Mullinax might be somebody to maybe think about with the putter if they're going to compete. It's probably thanks to these spike performances. You just hope that the bad days are, closer to field average. Something to think about. Jacob Bridgman, fewer rounds. Justin Suh, 25% of the time or close to it, gained 2 or more strokes in a round. Lastly, let's go with true spike. We'll say 4 because Champ and List each had a round where they gained 4. This ought to be very interesting and very low percentage. So 7%. Johnny Vegas, again, not a good putter historically. If you take a look, most of the time, not a very good putter, but leading the way in terms of spikeability when you're gaining 4 or more in a round. Mackenzie Hughes, generally a good putter. Bo Hossler, generally a good putter. Montgomery, there's Mullinax again. So I definitely wanted to highlight some of these players in this spikeability in terms of performance on the greens. I don't want to only focus on fast and lightning Bermuda specialists, if you will, because we've seen that winners are just coming out of nowhere sometimes. Mackenzie Hughes has won this. He's just generally a good putter. But, bad putters can win at the Sanderson Farms because these greens aren't terribly complex. So there's some names to keep in mind for you. This is on the two strokes around, and some of the names up there at the top. 50%. There you go. So Skin or Teeter, then Skins, Mac Miser. I mean, there's very few rounds in here. Really, Taylor Montgomery, Nick Dunlap, only 12 rounds, but he's performed very, very well. Chad Ramey, Mullinax, which is very surprising, but there he is. Ben Griffin, Justin Suh, McNeely, and so on down. Okay. With that, we're going to move into driving and greens, and really we're going to look at one thing here. It's the driving distance. So let's go last 36 and 2 years when rounds have been easy relative to par. Your top driving distance players, no surprise, Cameron Champ, Chris Goddard, Callum Tarrant, Kevin Doherty, Garrick Higo, Kevin Yu, Ryan Brim, Pearson Coody, Will Gordon, and Hayden Springer. There's your top driving distance players when rounds have been easy relative to par. I'm definitely going to be having a pretty decent focus on this come Wednesday night. And that's really the only aspect of this page view that I think I'm focused on. Moving into scoring. Definitely going to look at birdies or better, but I'm not going to ignore opportunities either. So, in the past 2 years, or 36 rounds, your top performers, or your top players that have given themselves the most opportunities in that time frame: Joel Damon, Troy Merritt, Adam Schenk, Sammy Valimaki, Doug Gim, Patton Kazire, Lucas Glover, Michael Thorbjornsen, Rico Hoey, and Carson Young. And your top birdies or better gained players when rounds have been easy relative to par: Eric Cole, Chan Kim, Hayden Springer, S.H. Kim, Sam Ryder, Ryo Hitsatsune, Pearson Coody, Justin Lauer, Michael Kim, and Michael Thorbjornsen. We'll take a quick look at proximity, particularly the 100 to 125, since that is what seemed to pop the most from the Excel data. So we'll go 2024 season, last 36 in the 2024 season. But your top proximity players from 100 to 125 in the field this week: Eric Cole, Taylor Montgomery, Roger Sloan, Seamus Power, Kevin Streelman, Pearson Coody, Charlie Hoffman, J.J. Spawn, David Lipsky, and Ryan Fox. Take a very, very quick look at par threes. And again, we're just going to look at par threes in total. Just remember, we're going to you should focus on just these three. These three ranges here. David Skins, Keith Mitchell, Johnny Vegas, Pearson Coody, Nate Lashley, Sammy Valimaki, Sam Stevens, Chan Kim, Aaron Baddeley, and C.T. Pan. Like, C.T. Pan might be a bit of an outlier there because he's not very good from 200 to 225. But overall, well, I say Sammy Valimaki's kind of mediocre at the two shorter ranges. But really, everybody else is pretty darn solid. Like David Skins, par threes, he's very good at par threes. Keith Mitchell, very good at the par threes. Coody, Pearson Coody. Sam Stevens, fine. Cole, fine. Fox is good. So there's a look at the par threes. Quickly, we'll go to the fours and fives. Your top par four performers: Kuchar, Spawn, Bridgman, C.T. Pan, Andrew Novak, Chan Kim, Roger Sloan, Keith Mitchell, Zach Blair, Rico Hoey. From 400 450, Sloan's Vincent Hit Satsune, Ben Griffin, Chan Kim, Taylor Montgomery, Blair, C.T. Pan, Mac Hughes, and Chad Ramey. And then finish this up with par 5 scoring. And I'm just going to look at 550 to 600. Eric Cole, Johnny Vegas, Davis Riley, Patrick Fishburne, Hayden Springer, Keith Mitchell, Sam Stevens, Seamus Power, Ricky Fowler, and Paul Barjon. So we're going to bring this to the strokes gained. Now we're going to go to Excel to finish the show with the early look file. We've seen what statistics generally play the best around the Country Club at Jackson. So in the past 5 years, what players have performed best at those metrics? So we're definitely going to want to look at approach. So we're going to sort on approach, largest, smallest, your top approach players at the Country Club at Jackson the past 5 years. Ben Griffin, Nick Hardy's been very good. Roger Sloan. Vajegas has been very good with the irons, but you see the lack of success because he does not putt very well. Grillo, much the same. C.T. Pan, 4 for 4. Not doing very well off the tee, but he's hitting his irons well and he's putt very well here. Mark Hubbard's only 2 for 4. Good with the irons, but been fairly lackluster with the putter. I should say mediocre. He's actually a little bit higher than field average, but Henrik Norlander, strokes gained total leader the past 5 years here, 4 for 5. You would expect this from Henrik Norlander. 1.5 off the tee, 2.5 approach. He is a ball striker. What's surprising is the putting. He's not a very good putter. He's gained almost 2 every year. So something to definitely note. But some other top iron performers: Ramey, Gim, Count Taryn, Dylan Wu. Definitely want to look at putting. Who some of the best putters have been the past 5 years at the Country Club at Jackson. Lonto Griffin leading the way. He is an alternate at the moment, so be aware of that. If he gets into the field, you want to make a note of that he has putt very, very well here at the CC of Jackson. Montgomery's only one time. McNeely, much to be desired in terms of performance, mainly because the ball striking's been bad, but he's putt very well here. Higo's been very good on the greens. Griffin, Roger Sloan again, surprising. Peter Malnati's just generally a good putter. S.H. Kim. Seamus Power's been putting very well, but look at that horrendous ball striking here, or at least with the irons. Mackenzie Hughes is a former winner. I was going to look for Luke List and Cameron Champ, but seems like they're kind of towards the bottom here. Like Luke List, even with his gaining 6, you see generally just not a very good putter. So he had a completely out of character week and wins last year, which is what it's going to take. That's why I showed you the spike percentage or spike performers. Cameron Champ might have already passed him. Nope, there he is. He's actually been very good on these greens. So something to think about. Cameron Champ. We'll take a look at distance, sure. Your top driving distance players at the CC at Jackson. No surprise, Cameron Champ, Toasty, Higo, Callum Tarrant, Luke List, Bramlett, Mullinax. Even though he's missed the cut a couple of times, kind of intrigued by Mullinax considering his spike ability on the greens. Kevin Yu, much less to be desired. Woodland's 0 for 2. Okay. Let's go birdies. Sort on the birdies gained. Your top birdies gained players at the Country Club of Jackson the past 5 years. There's Higo, McNeely, but has not been avoiding the bogeys at all. English, Ben Griffin, Norlander, S.H. Kim. Malnati's 5 for 5. Average finish just inside the top 40. Isn't great, but he's 5 for 5. Nick Hardy's 3 for 3 here. Interesting. CT Pan's 4 for 4. Interesting. Let's just go straight to the par 5s because I do want to show you some of the research that led to what I posted to social media earlier. So your top par 5 performers from 550 to 600 at the Country Club of Jackson. Again, Toasty only one time. There's Garrick Higo, English, McNeely, Troy Merritt, Norlander, Mackenzie Hughes. You see some of these players that have played very, very well year over year. They're taking advantage of these par 5s and taking care of them, quite handily. Luke List, former champion right there. Taylor Montgomery finished 9th in his one time. He played them very, very well. Cameron Champ, former champ. Excuse the pun. So, I'll sort this on finish, and I'll go to some of the research that I posted to social media earlier today. We'll start with the winner matrix. I'm going to be honest, there wasn't a whole lot here. The winner matrix, for your reference, is taking a look at performance of champions, how they played that course before they won. So you see Luke List, the year before, just made the cut, seemingly, 73rd. He did have a top 20. He finished runner-up in 2016, which is a long, long time ago. Mackenzie Hughes, 35th. It was fine. And then won. Sam Burns missed the cut the year before he won. But a lot of these players had not played the Country Club at Jackson before winning. Sergio, Cameron Champ, Gribble and Malnati. This was, 2 of the first 3 years that the Sanderson Farms was played at the Country Club of Jackson. Like Ryan Armour, he missed the cut both times he played. So there wasn't a whole lot tying previous performance at the Country Club of Jackson to winning. Yeah, the past 3 champions have had some amount of success, but it wasn't stellar. And you've had a lot of first-time winners at the course. So if it wasn't prior performance at the course, what was it? Well, if we look at some prior performance from the previous winners, say like Luke List, I want you to note he played the Fortinet, or now the Procore, finished top 25. Wasn't great, but it's respectable. Mackenzie Hughes, top 25, his only fall event. Sam Burns didn't play in the fall. Sergio, 2020 was a ridiculous year, but Sergio had at least played in the fall. Sebastian Munoz, the Greenbrier, had played in the fall, and he top 10'd. Cameron Champ, top 25 of the Fortinet. Armour at least played in the fall. He missed the cut, but at least played in the fall. 6 of the 8 champions going back to 2016 had played in the fall. Or excuse me. Yeah, 6 of the 8 had played in the fall. 5 of those 8 had a top 25 in the fall of that same year. So they were in at least good form, good immediate recent form. And they had also, all 8 of these champions, all 8 of the Sanderson Farms going back to 2016, all 8 had another top 25 other than the one from the fall. So you see Luke List had a top 25, actually had a top 20 since June 1st of that year. He top 20 the Memorial. Mackenzie Hughes had 2 top 25s since June 1st of that year. Sam Burns had several. I just highlighted this one because it was a non-playoff event. Sergio, top 5 since June 1st. Munoz, essentially two top 10s since June 1st. So every one of these winners had a top 25 other than the one in the fall also. So they had at least played somewhat well in the recent ending of the PGA Tour, of the previous PGA Tour season. So going back to June 1st. Those were really the main 2 things that I had seen regarding pattern of previous winners. Because if we look at previous performance, like the most recent performance, like off the tee, maybe 6 of the 8, okay. You could argue maybe like the approach was all over the place, putting was all over the place, even distance was all over the place. So there wasn't a whole lot of consistency among the metrics for these players. I mean, even the par 5s weren't consistent. Maybe the 550 to 600, but still. So really, it was just all about the total form of those champions coming in. 6 of the 8 had played in the fall, and I think 5 of those 6 had a top 25 at least in the fall before the Sanderson Farms. And there's not a lot of events. A lot of times it was just the Fortinet. So be on the lookout for players who played well at the Pro Tour. Maybe didn't necessarily win it like Kazire, but I'm thinking of players akin to Svensson, Blair, who top 15. See how they played at the Pro Tour, because that's generally been a pretty good indicator of someone who's going to win the Sanderson Farms so long as they played the Pro Tour. Well, that's what I have for you all this evening in terms of a data dive for the Sanderson Farms. I want to thank you all for tuning in, watching, listening, supporting the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do, taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst's view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Reminder that Wednesday night, the DFS Tactics show will be 9 p.m. per usual, and then right following that, immediately following the DFS Tactics show, I will be in Gabe's Substack chat as we continue the DFS talk over there. So a lot of DFS action on Wednesday, so make sure you set your reminders for that. Thanks again for all the support. For all of the wagers you have made so far this week for the Sanderson Farms, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the Sanderson Farms, and until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.